She led me by the hand, her eyes burning with the passion she missed in her marriage to Michael. I followed her like I was mesmerized, knowing I was crossing a line from which there would be no turning back. For the first time in years, I felt alive. I never thought that in my 50s I would feel such passion, such feelings, as if I were back in my youth.
Thank you for watching my channel. I create videos for your enjoyment. Please subscribe if you want to support my efforts, it's very important to me. I apologize in advance for any mistakes, dubbing is done by neural network. Please point out mistakes in the comments so I can correct them.
Every glance she gave me was like a touch. I felt her presence make everything inside me tighten into a tight knot of anticipation. It was like she was playing with me, knowing how much she was affecting me. Sarah wasn't in a hurry, she was savoring this tension between us, stretching out the moment when we would finally cross the line. I could see her lips slightly open, as if she was about to say something, but was saving that thought for later, letting me only guess her intentions. Sarah always found a way to be there for me whenever I showed up at their house. Her hand would slide down my back as if unintentionally, and I could feel its warmth through the fabric of my shirt. That light, almost invisible gesture was like an electric shock running through my body. Every whisper in her ear, every playful smile made me lose control, and I felt the thin line between us begin to fade. Her presence was driving me crazy. I caught her every gesture, every word, as if she was telling me something more than just ordinary phrases. She knew how to control me, playing with my feelings like a musical instrument. I saw something more in her eyes. It wasn't just desire, it was a hidden passion she was trying to contain. There was this inner struggle in her every movement, but the more she tried to hide her emotions, the more they came out. We were sitting in the living room, exchanging the usual pleasantries, when her foot subtly touched mine under the table. I looked up and met her gaze. The moment lasted only a few seconds, but there was so much underlying tension in it that I barely restrained myself from grabbing her hand and pulling her into the other room. I knew that in that moment she was feeling what I was feeling. It was in her eyes, in her slow, almost hypnotic movement. My name is Dan. I've been married for 25 years, and Amy and I have 2 wonderful children. On the surface, our life looks like a dream come true, a nice house, a stable job, family holidays. But behind this prosperous picture lies a deep sense of dissatisfaction and emptiness. Amy is a wonderful woman, a caring mother and faithful wife, but the passion that once blazed between us has faded. We've become partners rather than lovers. The only island of variety for me was going out with friends. Michael, my best friend since university, had always been someone I could trust. He married Sarah, and I was a witness at their wedding. Sarah was a bright, effervescent woman who was loved by all of our friends. Her presence always lit up a room, and she had a way of finding common ground with everyone. In her 50s, Sarah looked amazing. Her figure, grooming and presentation attracted the eyes of men, and I was no exception. It all started with innocent little things. Sarah often joked in my direction, could casually touch my arm or shoulder. It was innocent at first glance, but each time I could feel some tension building between us. She looked at me with eyes full of innuendo, and I found myself unable to ignore them. When we were alone, her behavior became more overt. She might discreetly touch my leg under the table or leave her hand on my back a little longer than necessary. Every time our gazes crossed, I felt an invisible spark slip between us. It was the moment when words became unnecessary, when it felt like just a little more and everything that was hidden would come out. It was as if Sarah was deliberately teasing me, lingering her gaze on my lips, as if wondering how they would feel against her skin. I could see her biting her lip, as if holding back the urge to come out. We were in the same circle of friends, but every time I was near her, it was like time slowed down. Her voice, her movements, it mesmerized me, drew me in, made me forget everything around me. I could see how she changed when we were alone, how her usual smile disappeared and something deeper, more intimate appeared. Sarah played with that tension, letting it build up but never letting it go beyond, as if testing my boundaries. I remember the night we gathered at Michael and Sarah's for dinner. Amy couldn't make it because of work, and Sarah was especially attentive to me. At one point she invited me to help her in the kitchen. There, away from the eyes of the others, she got a little too close to me so that I could feel her breath on my neck. Her gaze was full of innuendo. She whispered conspiratorially, "Dan, do you know how hard it is to be the wife of a successful man?" Looking into my eyes. Michael is always at work and I miss the passion so much. At that moment, her hand slowly slid down my back, and I realized I couldn't resist. Each of our next conversations became more and more explicit. Sarah texted me often, adding ambiguous innuendos to the messages that stirred my imagination. She knew how to playfully tease me without crossing the line of propriety, but still pushing me to take action. The first time she whispered in my ear how much she missed the passion, I felt something change inside me. It was a mixture of excitement and fear. Her words stayed with me long after I left their house. I tried to convince myself that it was just an innocent game, that it was nothing serious between us. But every time I saw her again, I realized that those thoughts were just self-deception. Sarah continued to build up this tension, trapping me in her trap slowly but surely. Her messages became more explicit. She described how long she had thought about our conversation, how her body responded to my touch. I could feel her gradually pulling me into this vortex of passion, from which there would be no escape. We both knew we were crossing a dangerous line, but we couldn't stop. She enjoyed it, playing with me like a cat with a mouse, feeling my growing arousal. Every time I saw her name on my phone screen, my heart started beating faster. Her messages were like a fire igniting a passion in me that I couldn't quench. She knew how to use words to drive me crazy, to make me want her even more. There was more hidden in every message than just flirting. It was a challenge, a call to action that I couldn't ignore. As I read her words, imagining her writing them while lying on the bed, I could feel the desire boiling inside me. Sarah knew how to make me lose my head. She knew what she was doing and enjoyed it. I was on edge, realizing that one more step and I would snap, but I couldn't stop. Her messages became more and more explicit, and I could feel her growing closer to me with each word, as if we were already together, even though we were far apart. One day, when Michael was away on a business trip, Sarah invited me to her house on the pretext of discussing a family holiday. I knew it was just an excuse, but I couldn't refuse. As soon as I walked in, she greeted me in a dress that emphasized her figure. Her arms wrapped around my neck and she whispered in my ear, "Ivan you, then." I can't hide it anymore. That moment was decisive. We spent several hours in her bedroom, enjoying each other. It was a risk, but we couldn't stop. Every time I remembered it, I felt my heart beat faster. Sarah knew how to make me forget everything. She came to my work one day under the pretense of having lunch together, but we ended up in a hotel room enjoying each other. There was an incident that became particularly dangerous for us. We were at their house, and Michael, unexpectedly returning from work early, caught us in the kitchen. Sarah, without losing her composure, pretended that we were having a simple conversation. She moved closer to me than she should have before Michael saw, and whispered, "We have to be more careful, but I can't be without you." Our first time happened a month after that dinner. I stopped by their house to pick up some things they had left behind. Sarah was alone. We were sitting on the couch, and I couldn't hide my feelings anymore. She came closer and suddenly kissed me. It was a long and passionate kiss that we had been holding back for so long. We forgot about everything, about our duty to our spouses, about morality. In that moment it was just the two of us. Every time we met was like a magical dream. We rented apartments for a few hours, hid in small hotels on the outskirts of the city. Sarah craved the passion she lacked in her marriage. She told me that Michael had become more of a friend than a lover. Their relationship had become routine, and she longed for the times when they couldn't get enough of each other. One of the highlights of our affair was when we went to a neighboring town for the weekend. Under the pretense of a business trip, we escaped from all obligations. There, in a small hotel overlooking a lake, we spent 2 nights in each other's arms. It was an escape from reality, an illusion we so wanted to believe in. We walked along the shore, dined in small restaurants, and enjoyed every moment we spent together. One day we met at a small hotel on the outskirts of town. I stopped by there after work, letting Amy know I had an important meeting. Sarah arrived later, confident that Michael was on a business trip. We spent a few hours enjoying each other, talking about how much our lives had changed over the past year. We drank wine and laughed, forgetting all our problems. Lying on the bed, Sarah suddenly said, "Dan, you know, I never thought that in my 50s I could feel as I did when I was young. You've given me a second life." I realized that our relationship was an escape from reality, that sooner or later everything would be revealed. But in that moment, I was happy. We enjoyed every moment, forgetting everything else. Every time I came home, I felt like a traitor. I lied to Amy, looked into Michael's eyes and knew I was betraying their trust. But when I saw Sarah, all doubt vanished. Her embrace, her passion, her tenderness, it was like a drug to me. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't stop. Sarah was tormented by guilt, too. She loved Michael but couldn't find the strength to stop seeing him. She said that her life with him had become a routine, that she no longer felt like a woman, loved and desired. She sought comfort in my arms, and I was happy to give her what she was missing. One day, after we met again, Sarah suddenly said, "Dan, you know Michael can never give me what I need. He's too busy with his work, with his business. You understand me as well as anyone." I stopped talking, not knowing what to say. On the one hand, Michael was my friend, and I didn't want to ruin his life. But on the other hand, I understood Sarah. Her needs, her desire to be loved and wanted. Michael really didn't deserve a woman like that. He didn't see her suffering, her longing for passion. We tried several times to end the affair, but each time we returned to each other. It was stronger than we were. We knew we were playing with fire, that sooner or later everything would be revealed. But for now, we carried on as if we were on the edge of a precipice, and each step could be our last. I don't know where this story will lead. Maybe it will ruin our lives, or maybe we'll find the strength to stop it all. But as we continue our dangerous romance, we live moments of passion and pleasure.